Covert agencies have a decades-long history of rape trafficking. The CIA's George White reportedly wrote to Sid Gottlieb, as it's in the Manchurian Candidate book, quote, "Where else could a red-blooded American lie, kill, cheat, and rape with the sanction of the All-Highest?" Another example is Kathy O'Brien in the books Transformation of America and Access Denied for Reasons of National Security. She was talking about how the CIA raped her daughter, her young daughter, Kelly. So that's just an example of the history that's already known about this, about the U.S. federal government's direct involvement in rape trafficking. I know that it was Gil Lopez who coordinated this. This is taking into consideration everything. The first night that I was raped is the day that I blocked his number. So it's recognizing the patterns of stalking that were connected to him and everything after that, including the fact that part of the couple seconds of a memory that I have that felt like a dream at the time involves him outside my car with that video camera. The person's question was, does she face the other aspects of the targeted individual program like V2K and gang stalking and what have you? So to answer that question fully, number one is that as far as the directed energy weapons, I have been exposed to 24/7 radiation by these directed energy weapons. For me, that did not start until November 21st, 2023. I can go into detail and try to sum that up as succinctly as possible. What I'm being targeted with the directed energy weapons started November 21st. That was about 5 days after I had gone public with the name Gil Lopez. I went public on social media with the name Gil Lopez after, taking everything into consideration. I've gone to the police 20 times, including at least 5 reports to FBI. It's technically 6 because I did call the FBI. So after doing all that and seeing that it did not help me at all, and in fact hurt me, I said, okay, I have to change this up. So let me go public with this. November 21st, 2023, this will match up with what a lot of targeted individuals have experienced. There was a fire alarm to go off in my building. At this time, I had been in the apartment, spending most of my time in the apartment. Although I'm not 100% certain why, what I've deduced is that they set that fire alarm to get me out of the apartment for some reason. And I actually did not know what directed energy weapons were on November 21st, 2003. What I noticed when the fire alarm happened, I left for a few minutes and I came back, and it did take me a couple hours to put together, okay, that fire alarm was definitely something related to this and related to me. And the only reason I was able to put that together was having listened to the testimony of other targeted individuals and victims of this rape and the MK Ultra who referenced the fire alarm as a tactic specifically. The night of November 21st, 2023, I noticed a new noise in the apartment that was like a buzzing noise. It was like a low volume buzzing noise. So while I didn't know what directed energy weapons were, I noted the noise and the fact that it began that night. In the days following, I had done some research on what other targeted individuals were saying about the directed energy weapons. And I said to myself, okay, that's why they did the fire alarm. They came and put some type of weapon in the apartment. I know there is a lot of debate within the targeted individual program about the nature of these weapons, specifically about whether they're localized. I am very confident that this is a localized weapon, not only because of the fire alarm, but because of many other things after this when it comes to the directed energy weapons. So I have been radiated, and that sound is how I know I'm being radiated. The other part, just really quickly on that person's question, does she get gang stalking? Yes, from the beginning, this has been gang stalking of the pimp rape operation in Texas. And then throughout the entire country, as I've moved around trying to keep myself safe and just go about my life like a normal person, I've gotten the gang stalking there as well. The thing that I'll say about that just really quickly is that in Texas, because this problem of rape trafficking is so bad in Texas, there is a clear contingent of people who are gang stalking, knowing that they're doing it as a part of the rape trafficking. And then there's like another side of the gang stalking as well that is more blatantly connected to the US federal government. Ultimately, it's the individual racketeers within the US federal government who are using the resources at their disposal to do the gang stalking overall. Other parts of the gang stalking have been people that they've sent to approach me to say certain things, basically. In all cases of that, that's been mostly strangers. My default is to just not even, to ignore anyone that I feel that they sent for me. Anyone that they've sent to me, once I figure out that they've sent them to me, I stop all contact. And that's been the main thing from the beginning. It's absolutely criminal, the different types of torture that targeted individuals are facing, and the torture coordinators coordinating this, they rely on the idea that it sounds too out there to try to paint the victim as some kind of psychiatric case. That's always the first thing that they go to. But the fact is that they do have sophisticated technology that can do these different things that most citizens are not aware of. So the people doing that work of exposing this technology are doing important work. Someone made a comment saying she should hire a private investigator to follow her and to be able to take notice of what they're doing to her. First and foremost, I thank that person for their suggestion. We have to think creatively about all possibilities and how to bring an end to this, and how to have proof, right? So, like I said, there's been so many instances of proof where it still hasn't been taken seriously. What I'll say as far as hiring a private investigator, first and foremost, is that number one, I already did that, and it became clear that that person was in on this to some degree. Number two is that people have to see the bigger picture. This program tries to, and other targeted individuals have said this so many times, I'm not the first, the program goes out of the way to try to financially debilitate the victims. And that has certainly been the case for me. Like anyone who's been raped, broken into, drugged, and raped in their sleep, ever since this, my nightly safety has become my foremost priority. It's been a matter of trying to be safe. And so for that reason, the financial aspect of things have not been my top priority. So I don't disagree with that person. The reasoning that they're using is the exact same reason I went to the FBI, because the FBI has the resources to be able to watch me as a victim. So let's say, like, in good faith, let's engage with the argument that I don't have evidence. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, even if that was the argument to some extent, what I was thinking when I went to the FBI is, I know for a fact that these racketeers, these rape traffickers are following me all the time. So if the FBI will just listen to what I'm saying now and follow me as a way to get the evidence of what they're doing to me, they'll have the evidence, right? But what I found the hard way, and what's very true, and what many other targeted individuals have already said, is that unfortunately, the resources of the US federal government that is supposed to protect us is not being used to actually protect us. It's being used for the purposes of the rape trafficking, and they turned it around on me. So I do thank that person for their comment. I have tried the private investigator, having found that the private investigator industry is already so saturated with this rape trafficking and with these organized criminals that it's a matter of not wanting to bring another person into my life who's already connected to them. It's absolutely criminal, where it's like the individual racketeers within the US federal government coordinating these torture programs, these illegal programs, but specifically the rape trafficking, they do try to set it up to where they control everything, so that anything that we try to do to defend ourselves, including the things that any normal person would think of, like the private investigator, they try to set it up to where they already control the private investigator. Exactly. Are there private investigators who are good people? Absolutely. Are there private investigators who are opposed to rape trafficking, who are opposed to this criminal racketeering? Absolutely. But a lot of the times, unfortunately, when someone with authority comes to them saying, I'm with the FBI, I'm with the CIA, tell me everything you know, that individual private investigator may not know that they're unknowingly handing over information about the victim into the hands of someone who is a criminal racketeer within the FBI or CIA or whatever agency. The way that these networks work, they do make use of things like personal friendships and what have you as criminal individual racketeers, turning people against the victim, in my case, many networks. And the other thing I'll say about that is that at its root, it boils down to whether it's private investigators, whether it's hotel employees, whether it's cab drivers, anyone that the criminal rape trafficking racketeers try to make use of to turn them against me, it boils down to a matter of who can be bought and sold, who can be bribed to be a part of this. And again, just reemphasizing the fact that many more people than most would assume are knowingly participating in this as a pimp program, as knowingly that it's pimping and raping. There could have been so much evidence taken when I was falsely imprisoned in a psychiatric facility, the semen left on the sheets there, all of that. But then outside of that, April 27th, 2023, when I went to the FBI field office in Houston, Texas, they make you go through the metal detector, but I had gone out of my way to have the sheets ready in a bag in my car. And I begged the woman who took my testimony at the end, I said, I have the sheets in my car. Can you please take this evidence so that you can find, because it's the semen of my rapist, we can absolutely prove this with that. And they said no. The other time that I, with those specific sheets that I had in my own possession, again, those specific sheets are from the night of April 18th, morning of April 19th, 2023, the semen that my rapist left on those sheets, it's those same sheets. When I went back to the FBI, which is the Charlotte FBI field office at Microsoft Way, I believe it's 7915 Microsoft Way, the address of this Charlotte FBI field office. I once again said, I have the sheets in my car. You know, I can't physically bring them into the building because they go out of their way to say you can't bring anything. You can only bring your purse and you can't even bring your phone. I said, once again, I reiterated, I have these sheets in my car. Can you please take them? It was one of those 4 days that I physically showed up at the FBI field office there in Charlotte that I said, I have these sheets with me right now. Can you please take these sheets with the semen of my rapist? And once again, the answer was no, they cannot take the sheets with the semen of my rapist. Specifically, April 27th, 2023, when I showed up at the FBI field office in Houston, the woman who took my testimony, I largely believe that she believed me on a personal level, believed my testimony. Now, this is where it comes down to the way the system works that doesn't match up with what actually is needed for victims to get justice. There should never be a bureaucratic system where that's in place. Their first response should always be yes. There's a lot of other work going on when it comes to rape kits. There's many examples. When I say work, I'm talking about other rape victims who haven't been victims of rape trafficking, who have rape kits that have literally sat in the offices of the police, the evidence room for years and years without even being tested. So it really boils down to, does the way that this system works actually work out for victims of rape? When it comes to rape, it's not taken seriously, and there should never be a system where it's not just taken right off the bat. That evidence is so important. In general, I wanted to address, people made some suggestions, and speaking from their own experience, I have significant reason to believe that my video systems have been hacked in many instances. That's just one thing. And when people say, oh, there's no way that they could, absolutely they could. There's so many different video gathering systems that the private security and the individual racketeers within the US federal government have access to the resources to hack into cameras. In another instance, I set up a security camera outside of my home. The camera was working. I left about 3 days later to go to the grocery store. When I came back, the camera had stopped working. I replaced the batteries in the camera. It wasn't a battery problem. I think they did something electronic to disable the camera. As soon as they saw that I left the house, they then went and somehow disabled the camera. And that's where it goes back to the directed energy weapons and what have you, that they're able to disable cameras in that way. So it's not to say, oh, there's no way to fight this or no way to gather evidence. It's to illustrate correctly just how thorough the networks involved in this are, that they do take preemptive measures to stop the ability to gather video evidence in many different ways. Another comment had said you should get a large dog, and somebody actually responded to the comment saying they'll poison the animal as well. And I do thank that person for their comment. It's good to be thinking about every possibility. It is true that unfortunately these rape traffickers, a lot of other victims have already said this, victims of the rape trafficking and just TI, targeted individuals in general, that they've harmed their animals. Yep. So what I would say is that everyone, especially people who aren't already targeted individuals, what I say is that they should get an alarm system. I do recommend that anyone have these security measures in place, not as a matter of fear, but as a matter of security. I just wanted to say it's so important that we use all the resources at our disposal to expose and fight this legally and peacefully. Part of what the rape traffickers coordinating this rely on so heavily is technology. So when technology is our primary means of defense and exposure, it's something that they're already used to knowing how to hack. There's been multiple instances during this that I've been broken into, drugged, and raped in my sleep, that I had multiple layers of security cameras that I'm almost certain that they have hacked into. So it's so important that we use all resources at our disposal to fight and get evidence. The answer to exposing and ending this once and for all, and making sure that no one is raped and broken into, drugged, and raped in their sleep or illegally tortured, is human. That's just my 2 cents. I wanted to address 3 things. Just really quickly, number 1, within the targeted individual community, there's a constant, when it comes to the directed energy weapons and whether or not they're localized or whether they're making use of the satellites and everything, there's a constant debate on whether they're localized or not. I am absolutely certain in my case that they are localized, and there's many pieces of evidence that I know to confirm this. And at the same time, it's not like there's no precedent for it. The cursory search of Raytheon or these other directed energy weapon manufacturers will show that there are absolutely localized weapons. I also wanted to make 2 other points. Psychiatry. Psychiatry is the first line of defense of the criminal rape trafficking racketeers coordinating this program. Psychiatry is a harm to the people. Psychiatry is a harm to targeted individuals. There's also a long history of psychiatry being used against people who are not targeted individuals. There's a lot of stuff with human psychology that is correct, but in general, I do recommend, just for what it's worth, that people stay away from psychiatry as much as possible. Under the control of the criminal racketeers in general, and it's a harm. And then the last point that I wanted to make is that Gil Lopez, there's absolutely no question that Gil Lopez is a rape trafficker. He's a facilitator of rape. He owns the house at 1305 East Hudson Street in Stamford, Texas. There's been some efforts to change how the street occurs, how it appears. He owns the house at that street, and he's using that house to coordinate and do criminal activity connected to rape trafficking. There's also a larger operation going on, including within the local government of Stamford, Texas, to cover up these crimes. I just wanted to say that targeted individuals, it's so important that we come together. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir. It's so important that we concretely be involved in each other's lives. Yep. I encourage any targeted individual. One thing that we hear is that the targeted individual community, unfortunately, especially online, has been infiltrated by operatives. That's true. That's true that the racketeers heading up this program have done that. So I encourage every targeted individual to follow their gut when they think that. However, there are so many of us that are genuine targeted individuals, and that can't stop us ultimately from coming together. we should preempt that they are going to try to infiltrate. It goes back to the question of who can be bought, who can be paid off, who can be bribed. And every targeted individual is an expert in their own targeting. This evil rape trafficking program and torture of innocent civilians program, it's got to stop.
Yeah.
Thank you.